Chapter 91. Barely Walk, and Him you are listening at Novel Full. Audio. I wasn't going to be able to finish if Wataluga kept this up. Come on, tough guy. I thought that you would be speedrunning the entire time. Wataluga teased me, and I started to move faster, using my anger as fuel. I had started off fine. The water totem helped me find the easiest path for me to travel through the heavy water. Then Wataluga must have sensed that I was doing too well, and the pressure and roughness of the weather increased tenfold. Now I could barely walk, but I was jogging now and pushing myself to my limits. I had so many things that I needed to get done, that meant that failure was not an option. You can do it. I heard Callie call out from the back of my mind, and that made me smile a bit, and I pushed forward. You just don't know how to quit, do you? Wataluga asked after he condensed his body back to his standard waterman form. I was panting, but I had completed the training without stopping after what had to have been 2 hours of running. It was now just past lunch by the sun, but I had already eaten my food on the run here. Even though the sandwich had turned into a breaded meatball, I had still eaten it. I can't afford to quit or fail right now, I have too much to do, I said, and I went over to the water and then bent down to wash my face. So, what do you think, Wadal? Pretty good. I think that he will take us back and maybe even help organize some of the calamity back on Gardania, Grogville asked as he walked over to me. I would be an idiot to say that he doesn't show promise, and he seems quite adept when it comes to using totems. Fine, I will lend my strength to you, but know that I will be watching and judging you. Wataluga said, and I let go of the wind totem before speaking so this didn't come out wrong. I hope that you two aren't going to be perverts and watch me with the girls, right? I asked, but Grogville shook his head with a smile. No, we will be your guards during the night, so you don't have to worry about that. We can also act as your guards during the day if you want to enjoy that during the light. If you do that, you will not have access to our totems or the ones connected to us during that time, Grogville explained, and I nodded to him. That was all I needed to hear. I didn't want to have to worry about peeping toms. I walked up to Wataluga and was about to place my hand on his chest. Chapter 92. The Last Drop, or Be Consumed. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. I started to run, and every step felt easy, like I knew exactly where to step and how. It was relaxing, and I was able to focus on Hero and what would be considered the bigger picture. I could hear the fire elemental coming and the heat rising. I hadn't even realized, but the Hellcat had torched my shorts, and I was mostly naked already. I took my shorts off, tossed the rags to the side, and then sat down cross-legged as Fire Den rose above the edge. He looked happy, but the fiery heat coming from him was being buffered by the 2 active water totems, but it was putting a mental strain on my body. Envied, so, have you come alone this time? Are you ready to hear my story? Fire Den asked me as he crossed his arms over the edge. Lava started to melt off him and move towards me, but it started to create a circle around me when it was about 6 feet away from me. The mental pressure started to get more intense. This was so much different from all the other training, and I had to focus on speaking. Yeah, let me have it, boss, I managed to get out, and Fire Den laughed at me. Good, I will tell you about the 7 primal forces in this world. Each of them resides in Gardania, the mega-continent. The rest of the world is made of smaller islands like this one. I was once part of Fire, but I was asked by Mex to accompany him like the rest of us. He is a shaman like you, but he has taken the sage's path and no longer uses totems. One day you will have that option, but I hope we can school you better than Mex if you plan to take us all, Fire Den explained. The lava had wholly surrounded me, and now there was a bit of steam coming from my body. I was listening, but all I could do right now was nod at the appropriate times. My body was stressed beyond comprehension, and I was worried I was going to puke from my nerves. While holding those totems, I can extract the final bit of water in your body and complete the change. Your body will now feed on energy, and you will be able to convert that into your system skills. You will also absorb elemental magic if you control it, but it will regenerate you, but not boost your shaman skills, Fire Den told me. I was starting to get shorter breaths, but I focused on them and got myself somewhat leveled out. The heat was constantly getting worse, though, making my stress levels rise to the point where I was starting to feel cold and clammy. You are going to hit a point where you think that you are going to black out, but you need to push through it. After that, I will tell you of the other 3, but for now, you need to keep your head above water, or you will be consumed, Fire Den explained to me, but I was already fighting it. I could feel a wave of intenseness start to roll through my body, and it was like all the blood was rushing to my head. I started to get dizzy, my head got light, and the heat closed around me. Chapter 93. The Seal, and time. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Don't give up. I dug my fingernails into my knees and shook my head, fighting through the dizziness and nausea. Callie's voice echoing from the back of my head had brought me back, but not the stress was fading, and so were all the feelings that it brought. I was finally able to sit back up straight and look back at Fire Den, whose smile was set to crack his face in half. Now the fire no longer bothered me, and I was able to sit in peace as I waited for the fire elemental to continue. Fire, water, earth, air, these are the 4 that you have met, but there are 3 more. The element of life is light, for where there is light, there can be life. The same is true for death, the element of shadow. While some can survive without it, in a place where there is no light, there is no warmth, and nothing can survive. Basic information, I know, but these elements act in the same way as they behave, which is important to know when dealing with them, Fire Den explained, and I was finally able to speak up. So I will have to deal with them accordingly, but why weren't these 2, and the other unnamed one not with Mexico? I asked, and Fire Den nodded appreciatively. Good, you look much better now, and you can talk. As for Mex, that is why I explained the 2 different personalities of light and shadow, the 2 are nearly impossible to get to work together. As for the last element, energy, it can't be tamed until you have mastered the first 6 because elemental energy is the source of the 6 elements, Fire Den explained, and I started to get a bigger picture of everything, but I had more questions. Gravel said that the land was alive, but I don't think I quite understand what he means. He told me that the land forced the monsters to attack the demons but then attacked themselves when they learned what the demons were doing. How does the land do that? I asked, and Fire Den nodded with a grin. I am really starting to like you, Kaz, you seem to know how to ask the right questions. Once you leave this island, you will start to feel the changes in the world, not like visions, but you will be able to sense turmoil and strife. So yes, the world is alive, and it is a combination of all the primal elements, and they are conscious, and they will fight back. The monsters and all things in this world are our creations, except for the demons. They are a plague brought to this world by some unseen force. Since then, some have learned to live with the land like the monsters. There are even large cities on Gardania that you will visit, Fire Den explained. As he did, a new feeling was starting to roll over my body. Revitalization, my body was healing all my torn muscles. Anything that had been wrong with me was now repaired, and I felt like I had just woken up from a long and relaxing sleep. I was now slowly absorbing the power from Fire Den, and it was repairing my body, but I wondered what would happen to the energy that went to my system. What is the energy going to do for me? You know what my system is, right? I can only support the girls that I choose to help, so I will assume that will just make me do that better. I asked skeptically. I am not really sure about that, not my area of expertise, Fire Den said with a frown and then scratched his chin as he thought about it. Yes, I would be okay with getting some armor or something, and maybe a primary weapon that didn't involve an element or backtalk. So, something on this island is blocking me from being able to hear the rest of the elements. I asked to skip over my last question. The great demon DOA is the one that sealed off the island using a special artifact that he constructed. It is hidden somewhere in the center of the island, but there is no way to target it or find it, we have tried many times. DOA placed it there to stop the interference from the island. By that time, all the monster herds had been completely thinned out. Now our best hope is to get off this island and get back to Gardania. Once we are back there, we will help you find a place to settle down, and then we can work on the other two elemental forces, Fire Den explained to me, but as he did, he started to shrink down. I slowly stood up and started to walk forward to Fire Den, that was slowly standing up after crawling up from the edge. We were the same size now, and the lava pulled back from me as I walked forward. Fire Den had a new orange glow to him, and I knew what this meant, but I paused before reaching up to touch his chest. Now that I knew who this was, I was more than likely to meet. How should I treat him? Chapter 94. Return to the Stars, and Why You Made This Choice. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. What made a soul worthy? And what was a soul? Is mine worthy? All questions that I would not be asking this person called time. I needed to think about this, and I caught myself before asking if there was a time limit. That would be just like me, get all prepared and then mess up without even thinking. Time would have no meaning to a person like this, so I should have as much as I need, but that didn't get me any closer to answering the question that I was asked. I needed to ask him a question, but there was only one thing that I really wanted to know after Hero had talked about the Dragon Nuts Booby. Kai tournament, or whatever it was called. If I am chosen, and you deem my soul worthy, what is it all for? I asked, trying to be specific, but not at the same time. Time was silent, and he did not speak right away. I was left to wonder if I might have offended him or something. Considering he was called Time, I thought he might be a faster thinker. Even I need a moment to answer this question. While I may be called Time, and I may have control of it, in this place, we are of the same time, and I cannot alter it. As for your question, there is a tournament of sorts, but it is not the purely fighting type. If you can pass my judgment, then you will be transported to a new world with your pets, but there will also be 490.9 others that will have passed the test there, Time explained, but then said no more. I didn't like that he called my girls pets, which immediately put me on edge with Time. He may be the god of the next level, but then that meant that my pets were his creation, and he should know that they are so much more than animals. That did not answer my question. You told me about the things that it involved, but not how it was. That was the deal, right? I ask you a question, and then you answer it. Your words, not mine, and if you would have said that I could ask you a question and you might answer, then I would understand, but you have still yet to answer my question. Stop reading my mind and read the question, I said, crossing my arms, not really caring what Time thought. I had seen enough TV to know that demons and gods love to mince words, and I wasn't about to let some level 2 god play me for a fool. Fire Den was not glaring at me, but he gave me a strained look, so I started to tap my foot on the ground that wasn't there. I am surprised. Normally, a witless person like you would just accept what I said, but as I have hoped, you are different. Yours and everyone else's target is the 10th plane, and that is the final realm where what you call gods reside. Once we have found our next god, we will try again. Now, I have answered your question fully, it is time to answer mine, Time told me, and I nodded. And I will give you my answer, but I don't know if you are going to like it, but I didn't really like your answer. I don't give a rat's ass if you think my soul or I am worthy. I have a great new life, and I thank you for that, but I am not about to butter you up to try to get first place, not my style, and never was, I said, and Time/Fire Den raised his eyebrow in surprise. So, even after telling you that you will become a god, you still do not care? Time asked me, and I shook my head no. If you are the standard for a god, then no. In my mind, I see this as all a big game to you. I also think that you are the type that cares only about end product matters, to hell with what stands in the way. I am dealing with a woman with the same issue, and if that is what I have to look forward to, then I would sooner just die when my time comes. At least I will be doing it with my friends and the people that I love and care for, the same ones you call my pets. Who do you have? Do you have a huge family that you will go back to after this meeting? I do, and I wouldn't trade this life for the world or to become a god, Mr. Time. I said, and to my surprise, he smiled at me. You are right, and I don't have what you have, but that is why I do this. One day, you will return to the stars with me, and we will all be waiting for you. I just hope that somewhere deep inside, you remember why you made this choice in the first place. When this is all over, I hope. I was back standing at the lava lake crater again, but my hair was all standing on end, and a cold chill ran through my body. I knew that person, and his name was not Time, but that was all that I knew or thought I did. Kaz, the shaman, I give you my bond as proof of my trust that you will do good for this world. I offer you the primal force of fire to augment and collect all your fire bonds. Do you accept? Fire Den asked me, and I nodded, my body starting to calm down. Hero's words jolted me from the thoughts that were trying to sink me, and I looked up at Fire Den while relaying everything that had happened. I accept your primal force of fire pact. I said with confidence, and Fire Den burst with light, but Hero had gone silent. Chapter 95. Ogre, and the Heroes I Have Eaten. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Fireden's mark covered my right arm with flaming tribal lines that were red at first but then faded to black. While this was interesting, my mind was waiting to hear what Hero's response would be, but he wasn't talking. I looked down at my burnt shorts and then shook my head. There was no point in putting those back on, and I needed to get going. My talk with Fire Den had lasted a lot longer than I had anticipated, and now the sun was starting to make its arch down. I kept both water totems active and then started to run. I no longer felt the heat or cold as things that affect my body. Instead, I could feel the heat and cold around me. I could sense monsters in the area, and I could make out some of them, like the green eyeless lizard things that were staying clear of me, but there was something more significant than the smaller creatures. Whatever it was coming for me, and it was big. I decided that now would be an excellent time to pick up the pace, and I started to run as fast as I could, but that just seemed to egg the monster on. I was about a mile from Windorf, but the creature was slowly gaining on me no matter how fast I ran. I slowed down and switched to Grogville Primal Totem. I was preparing myself for what was trying to catch me, as my body became stiff and rigid, but this time I could think and move faster. So, Mex has a new play toy. I was wondering why I couldn't get in here, but now I have found you, Snack, a massive hulking green ugly giant said as he walked onto the path. This thing was ugly enough to stress even a mother's love, and it also looked pretty tough. I would have to go all out if I wanted to beat this thing, but then suddenly Mex appeared out of nowhere. Run, go to Windorf and complete your training, and then go to the village and stay the night there. You cannot fight this one, or you will die. I will hold him off for now, and I have already locked the path to the village, now go. Mex commanded me, and every part of me wanted to stay, but something about the way that Mex was acting told me that this wasn't the time for dicking around. What? Mex, I only wanted to have some fun with him, you know, like the others that I ate. I want to hear him scream as I gnaw his limbs off. I am just a friendly ogre that wants to be fed. Is that so wrong? The ogre asked, and I started to run. Yeah, don't worry. Mex can't protect you forever, I will catch you one day, Snack. That was the last thing that I heard before getting out of earshot of Mex and the ogre. The creature didn't scare me, but knowing that the creature had eaten Heroes before was enough to make me pull the pin out and get moving. Whatever that creature was, an ogre, Mex was worried about it, and if he was worried, I was more than worried. Sometimes it might not be that bad to feel a bit of fear every now and then. That surprised me, and I had almost forgotten about him. Still, you weren't there, and you aren't me. I was the one being asked the questions, not you, and I don't think that he is the god of all gods. I think that Time is one of many, but I also think that I answered the question correctly because he smiled before sending me back. In my mind, that is a win. Maybe if my elder was a bit more respectful about the way he referred to people, I wouldn't have acted that way. That is neither here nor there, and speaking of elders, you caught the last part, didn't you? Time knew me from before this. What that means, I have no idea, but I would think that would make me your elder, yes.no. Thanks, how kind of you, but yes, I have a lot to learn from you, even if I am someone else. So, you will get to be Grandpa Hero for now, and I will Kaz the Menace. Chapter 96. Only Opponent, and Magical Odors. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. It was time to face the only one of the four that I considered an opponent. The other three had been my teachers, each one of them preparing me for this, and it was going to be a fight. Each time I had been getting better, but something about this time said he was going to be serious, and I couldn't see him anywhere. I didn't take out any of my weapons. Instead, I prepared myself and opened myself up to the area around me. Benoeldem, I could feel him moving around me. Windorf was circling me, looking for an opening. I wasn't going to let him have it, and when he finally made his move, I was ready. Everything happened in slow motion as I turned and slapped the fist away and then drove my own fist into Windorf's solar plexus area. Windorf drove an open palm down onto my fist and pushed it to his stomach, where he absorbed the force and then jumped back, but I could read him now. I followed him, pulling my fist back as the two of us leaped in the air, and the moment that we landed, I stepped into Windorf. I slammed my fist into him, but at the last moment, he disappeared into air vapor. I almost fell and had to roll forward to dodge a cut from the wind blade that Windorf had suddenly sent my way. He must be furious if he resorts to using a weapon against me, but that wouldn't help him now. I didn't have him as a totem yet, but because I was connected to the other three and I was mostly made of magic or energy, I could feel him around me. The next attack came as a full frontal slash, but I could see and feel what he was going to do next or the three possible things that he could do next. The water totems helped me read his movements and the flexibility and reaction to deal with them, but it didn't give me power. I slapped the blade away with an open palm and then kicked forward like Windorf was a door in my way. The wind elemental was kicked back but then disappeared again. I released Wataluga's totem and summoned Fire Den, and my body started to heat up. My muscles started to feel like they were burning, but I wasn't in pain, they were burning to be used, and that was when Windorf decided he had had enough. Suddenly, I could sense Windorf all around me, but I remembered this trick, and there could only be one attacking me at any time. The problem was that I could sense 4 out of the 16 surrounding me were solid forms of him. I started to take deep breaths, and each one of them stoked the fire in my muscles like I was revving the engine of a car. Burning red veins started to cover my body, and even my mind started to work faster, and that was when I noticed what Windorf was doing. Each of him was only 1.25 of himself, which meant only 1.4 as strong as he usually was. I dashed forward, and the moment I started to move, my mind started to slow the world down as I ran at what I considered to be an average speed. I ran straight at the first Windorf before he could react and smashed him out of the ring, making all but the 3 others disappear. Windorf rushed me, all 3 of him, at the same time. It seems that he is done with his game, but now it was time to finish this. I clenched my fist as I strained and squeezed the fire that was built up in my muscles. I must have looked like I was trying to shit my pants because Windorf slowed down, but that was a bad idea. I was trying to release the built-up fire, and suddenly, I farted a little, then exploded with heat. The wave of heat hit Windorf before the smell of a well-cooked fart could hit my nose, and all 3 of them were blown back from me. Windorf was knocked to the ground, but he didn't disappear this time. The blast must have beat the wind out of his sails, but I was more concerned about just how bad that fart smelled. What had I eaten? Fine, you have passed my test, but I am not happy about this. Mex told you I have a daughter, right? Windorf asked, and I nodded while trying to walk away from the fart that kept trying to follow me. Yeah, she doesn't want to be stiff like you, and you need someone to take care of her, right? I can do that for you, but you need to stop being such a prude. I beat you, even if I had help from my totems, that is my ability. If I had had a gun or a sword and beat you, it would have meant the same, I told Windorf as I walked over to him, and he made a disgusted face. What is that horrible smell? Windorf asked, and I rolled my eyes. How the hell can you smell my fart? I let one little bastard go trying to squeeze out the heat, and now I'll never hear the end of it. I complain, shaking my head. You are mostly magic now, so even your odor has a smell to magical creatures. I suggest you do not do that around my daughter, or she will treat you worse than she does me. Now, come this way, I want you to meet her first before I give you the wind force, Windorf said as he stood up finally. I nodded and shrugged, not really anything else I could do. Windorf seemed to think that he always had the upper hand, no matter where his hand was. I was led into a cave that was around the corner from where we fought, but it was dark. I ended up having to walk for 5 minutes in what should have been completely dark, but my body was giving off a slight glow, making it easier to see. Not like I couldn't just follow Windorf, but I liked to be able to see where I was going. So, it was nice to make some light, but I would also have to be wary when I was traveling at night. I was surprised to see that the tunnel ended in a wooden door with a round top. Windorf paused in front of it and then turned around to face me. Dear readers, I am dropping down to 3 chapters a week, but I will still be doing one a day on .com/magic_current chapter 120. Chapter 97. Frustration, Can I Call You Daddy? You are listening at novelfull.audio. My daughter is what you might call a horrible and intolerable child that is next to impossible to get to do anything or to listen. I ask that you take good care of her if you decide to take her on. Her mother wanted nothing to do with her, and I have not been able to handle her, Windorf explained, and I gave him a raised eyebrow. If you weren't able to do it, what makes you think that I will? I asked, and Windorf nodded his head. I don't think you will, but Mex does, and he is one of the very few people's opinions that I respect and will listen to. Mex believes that you are something different, and all of our tickets back to Gardania. Once we are back there, I will ask you to find the mother and try to talk some sense into her. Windorf said while shaking his fist, but I shook my head to the last part. I will take you and your daughter there, but I will not be forcing anyone to do anything. If you force a useless parent to be good so they can get their child back, they will just go back to the same way they were after everyone is gone. I will take you there, and if the girl's mother wants to try to get back into her life, then I will help. I will do nothing if she does not want to, and neither will you. Kids don't need useless parents to bring them down, I said with passion. I didn't have kids because my job never had the time for it and because I couldn't be there for the kid the way they would need me. I had seen many people forcing other people to do things that they clearly didn't want to do. No matter what, in my mind, you can't make people do something they didn't want to do. No matter how much you think or know they should do something, that isn't our choice in the end, it's theirs. Not what I had expected to hear coming from your mouth, but I understand, and maybe you are right. It might cause more damage to even introduce the woman back into her life, Windorf said, rubbing his chin. Daddy, I can hear you out there, called the cute-sounding voice of a little girl, but for some reason, that seemed to put Windorf on edge. I told you to call me father. We have a guest that I would like for you to meet, so please restrain yourself, Windorf said and then looked at me with an exasperated look, but I was wondering what the issue was. The door swung open to reveal a clear-bodied beauty that was about 5'5", completely naked, and far more adult than I would have ever imagined from her voice. She was full-chested and had an hourglass body that was light blue, but there was also a spinning presence around her like air currents. You're so serious all the time, Daddy. You are going to get old if you keep that up. What is this man-thing that you have brought? Is he for me? The blue water beauty asked her father, who rubbed his hands over his face in frustration but then disappeared, so I stepped up to the girl. My name is Kaz, and I am a shaman. I have come to claim your father as one of my primal totems, but he has asked that I take care of you, but I still don't know your name, I said to the girl, and then she jumped up to me, and I reflexively caught her, and she stretched up and kissed me on the lips. What are you doing, Heidi? Windorf roared, but the girl ignored him as she wrapped her arms around my neck. The kiss was cool and soft, and I completely blocked out Windorf's ravings. Something about this girl seemed to make the world disappear. Windorf was nowhere to be seen when they finally stopped, and Heidi looked up at me with glowing red hearts in her eyes. If you are going to take care of me from now on, will you get mad at me if I call you daddy? I won't think of you like him, and he has kept me locked up here for so long. I need to enjoy things, Heidi said as she let her arm fall and started to stroke my stiff erection, and I had to hold back a groan. What the fuck had I just walked into? Windorf was never going to let me take her now, and he sure as fuck wasn't going to give me his pact now. Listen, Heidi, I need your dad as my primal totem, and I don't think he will do that. If you are doing this to me when I ask him. I said, but not stopping her. I couldn't say that I wasn't thoroughly enjoying this moment. Fine, but you better not make me do things like my father. I don't want to become a fighter like him. Heidi said as she pulled her hand back, and I sighed. I will not make you do anything that you don't want to, and you can stay with Nushi until I get a place for you. You know her, right? There are also a bunch of other girls that I am taking care of as well, you might know some of them like Mary or Jilly. I asked, and Heidi nodded as I let her down. Yes. I know all three of them. Do I get to go live with the girls? At Uncle Max's castle? Heidi asked as she took my hand, and we started to walk back out, but I was having issues. I was trying to think of my dick being put through a meat grinder so I could lose this erection before going out, but it wasn't going down. Heidi was not helping because every time I looked at her, she was staring at it, and finally, I had to stop after only making it about 10 steps. I turned to Heidi, and my blood was pumping like a hammer in my ears. She was looking up at me, the hearts in her eyes were glowing brighter than before. I couldn't hold myself back, there was too much sexual tension in the air, and my body was suddenly aching for this transparent girl. I bent down to kiss Heidi, but she grabbed me by the hand and pulled me back to the door and into the room, closing it behind her. Chapter 98. Shocked and Dried Up Raisins. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Father can't come in here when the door is closed, and that's part of the reason why I make him so mad. No matter how strong he is, once I learned basic manipulation of water and air magic, I was able to seal the door and create a buff that disrupts him if I want, Heidi explained to me in a much more mature voice that suited the full-figured body. Why do you like tormenting him so much? And are you just climbing all over me to get at him? I am game either way, but I would like to know which way my chain is getting pulled, if you know what I mean, I said as Heidi got down on the ground in front of me. I am not doing this to get back at my father, it's the complete opposite. I am doing things, so you want to take me along with you, Heidi said as she moved to take my shaft into her mouth, but I stepped back, starting to feel uneasy. I did not want her to think that this was what she had to do, and the idea of me just letting it happen made me feel ill. I will take you with or without this. You do not need to do this, I am more than willing to take care of you, regardless of your father's choice, I explained to Heidi. No sooner did the words leave my mouth and Heidi burst with light, but I also felt a washing pressure on my water pact. I closed all the windows that popped up, they could be dealt with later, and knelt down in front of Heidi. She was more solid now but still transparent, but the waves ran over her body in strange, beautiful patterns. The designer system was what she had received, and it must be what was causing the designs. System, yeah, that made sense, duh. Are you okay? I asked and put a hand on her shoulder. Heidi looked up at me with blazing pink hearts in her eyes, and she smiled at me. Now, this isn't a job, Heidi said as she moved forward and kissed me, wrapping her cool arms around my neck. I returned the kiss, and slowly stood up with her, and felt her cool body start to slowly heat up. When Heidi pulled back to break the kiss, and I finally opened my eyes, I could see that her body was now the same glowing pink as her eyes. Heidi slowly sank down and smoothly took my renewed erection into her mouth, and I was a completely new feeling. There was warmth and suction, but there was also a rush of bubbles wrapping around my shaft as Heidi sucked on it. It was strange to be able to see everything that was happening inside of her head, but she hadn't stopped sucking since she started. I put my hands on the sides of her cheeks, and Heidi released me, opening her mouth. I gasped for breath, not realizing that I had been holding it, and then I staggered as the blood rushed up to my head. Then right as it filled and lightheadedness hit its peak, I got a burst of alertness, like a shot of controlled adrenaline. Did that feel good, Daddy? Are you going to come and fill the rest of my holes now? I heard Heidi's voice call to me. I snapped back, but right as I did, Heidi took my hand and pulled me to the bed. I activated the fire pact and the water sphinx totem, and only the blue rippling lines appeared. I want you to make me scream, Daddy. Heidi said to me in an erotic voice that sent pleasure spikes through my body as I climbed on top of her. Heidi was already reaching down, taking my hard erection in her hot hand. I leaned down and kissed her to keep her quiet as Heidi rubbed my tip into her almost hot lips. Her body was radiating heat, but I was absorbing it. I pushed and felt myself plunge into a maelstrom nexus, like a vortex pulling me in. The pleasure level was breathtaking. I focused as I kissed her and controlled my blood flow and heart rate as I started to fuck her. I started off slow, but the vortex seemed to pull and twist harder. Then when I picked up my speed, Heidi started to moan into my mouth, but the maelstrom slowed, so I punched my cock deeper and faster. Harder, Daddy. This is the calm before. Ah. Don't stop, Daddy. Fill my pussy. Heidi cried out as I held her by the shoulders and hammered my cock into her burning body. Then, the calm inside of her body stopped, and she turned gray and cloudy. I'm sorry, Daddy, I hope you are ready for this, she said in a calm voice as I continued to plow her body with my rock-hard blazing erection. Warning. Seed is destroyed, no options available. Then I was struck by lightning, right on the tip of said erection, and I ejaculated. At least that was the short of it for the naked eye to see. In my heightened state, and the water sphinx totem active, the lightning had a different effect. I experienced the next second, with milliseconds running at the speed of seconds. I felt the waves crash over me and the electrical charge on every nerve. The volts only attached the memory of this incredible experience as I felt the pleasure of ejaculating in slow motion. I reveled in the feeling that seemed to last forever, and the best part was the fact that my body resisted the pain from the shock. I was sure that I cummed more than I had ever had in my life, and my testicles must be dried up raisins because I could see a large amount of cum floating inside of Heidi. Daddy, that was really good, but we need to get going, or Father will start getting actually mad, Heidi said to me, and I grinned, and then kissed her, then pulled back. Sure, but what are you doing with the fried eggs floating inside of you? I asked, and Heidi laughed at me. Then her inside started to swirl around, and the electrified semen disappeared in the rush. There, I absorbed it, but you are pretty tough, but I think you should turn the totems off now, Heidi told me and opened the door, but Windorf was standing there with crossed arms. I was taken back to the day that I had to jump out a girl's window as her father came up the stairs. I nearly broke my damn arm jumping off the roof, but this time I was a deer caught in the headlights with no windows in sight. Chapter 99. Worlds Collide, the center of everything. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I like him, Father, let's go, Heidi said as she danced out of the room past Windorf, who was still looking at me. I centered myself, and stood up straight, and walked forward. I prepared myself for what was about to come as I approached Windorf with my eyes locked with his. Hero's voice was the last thing that I heard before I was back in that place as I pressed my hand to Windorf's chest. Nothing had changed, and then time asked me one more question, but then it became something completely different. Do you think that your soul is worth its weight? I asked this not as time, but as the man that you questioned. You asked me this very same question before we agreed to this, and I am still unsure how to answer it. I know why you choose to do this, but I don't understand the question. You don't know what I am talking about, and I might have overstepped myself, but it is as Hero said, we will not speak again for some time, Time explained to me, leaving me to dig into my mind as fast as I could. Both my fire-packed and water sphinx were still active, but I couldn't remember things that weren't there. Whatever Time was talking about, there were no traces of it in my mind, so instead, I shifted myself to the question. Do you think that your soul is worth its weight? That was a philosophical question that was asking if you thought your soul was worth what everyone else assumed it to be. Are your intentions as good as your goals? Are you worth the pedestal you have been built upon? Am I? I can answer that question, but you're the one with the name Time. Only time will tell me, right? I asked, and Windorf's body blinked at me in surprise. You gave me this name right before you said goodbye. Are you telling me that I had waited all this time? You are impossible, but a clever soul. Whatever happens from this point forward, you are on your own, but I will be leaving you with a present. Try to stay alive, and know that I still think that this is pointless. Whether you come out on top, the real fight happens at the place where worlds collide. You told me you have a plan this time, so I have to trust you because this is your soul, Time explained to me, and it felt like he was about to leave, so I started to talk fast, and then the feeling of departure left. Wait, I need more, like yours and my name. Don't give me that made-up Egyptian shit, I want our real names. Who were we? I asked in a rush. Mark, and your name is, nope, can even mouth it. That was probably your doing and will more than likely trigger something if you hear it used in the context of your name. We are humans that made it, but you denied it. Why? Because you are a meathead that only cares about fighting. Mark told me, shaking Windorf's head, and I rolled my eyes. Be nov calm, yeah, I am sure that was it, I just decided to do all this for a good fight, I said, and Mark narrowed his eyes at me. Fine, you want to end it all, win the tournament, and then we will rule it all. Or, as you like to say, it breaks the never-ending cycle that will allow the multiverse to unfold. Easy, you said, it's going to be simple, no way I can lose. What you didn't say is that it would take you 12,000 years to appear on the fifth cycle. Mark raved, but I shook my head. That was obviously something that I had no control over, and you seem pretty comfy. Plus, according to you, if I wouldn't have done this, you and I would be doing the same thing right now, right? Watching for other schmucks with the stats to do the job that we were meant to do. I shouted the last part, and suddenly I was standing in a room that was filled with gateways made from stone in a circular room. I was in a different body, a well-built frame, I was in my 40s, and Mark stood before me as we had this exact argument. This was the place where the worlds collided, and I had just refused my place as a god thing like Mark. Because they offered me a place as a god, but I had declined. Then, even though I had refused it, they would not allow me to compete for a chance to take the center of everything. Why do you think you can change this? You had completed the journey like we talked about when we first started, and we both got our places. Now what? I have to watch out for you while you go out and try to change another world. Mark raged at me, but I wanted to punch him in the face. You know that this will never end, and you are just giving in to zero. You are letting the demons win, and that is not how balance works. They refuse to power, and now the demons are filling up the multiverse. Only I can cap them by going back in, I said, but then Mark grabbed me by the shirt and shook me, he knew what I was about to do. Are you mad? Everything, you would lock it all away for this. You will never make it without knowing why you are doing it, and I won't be able to tell you. Mark raged, but I pushed him off me and walked over to the portal to the world called Earth. None of it matters, not me or these memories. Soon, you will only be watching the demons on the worlds, but I won't let that happen. Do you think that your soul is worth its weight? I will call you Time from now on, Mark, because you know the answer to that question. I will save this, but I promise you that my soul will not change, even after the memories are stripped clean. I will be back to take my place in the tournament, I said, and then I was standing in the tunnel with Windorf and Heidi. Want to read ahead, get stickers, and see the latest art? Join p*atr*ian.com/magic_. Chapter 100. Take care. Review of logs. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I closed my eyes briefly. I needed to take everything that I had just seen in. Time or Mark was someone that I was obviously close to, but I disagreed with. I could see why I would have trouble stomaching this problem, but there was something else, the demons. A demon at the center of this all, and I was helping demons. I knew that all demons couldn't be the same, but I would have to remember that mechs and the rest were still demons. The one at the center of everything was trying to flood all the worlds with demons, but I had given up everything about me to put a plug-in on them. I can't tell you, and it wouldn't matter if I did, none of it has anything to do with you. We are both playing different games on the same chessboard. The only difference is that I have already played as you, to reach for a spot as a god, but it wasn't to my liking. You could say that, but it was more of me just gaining a better understanding of the bigger picture. For now, none of it is essential, only what I accomplish in this world. Let me deal with Windorf before he gets even more angry with me. Not yet, I only got a better look at what the target was and why it was my target. The only thing that I needed to understand was the reason that I needed to do this. I think you have to go first, I said plainly, and Windorf blinked at me and then shook his head like he had been stuck in deep thought. Yes, the pact. I am trusting you with my daughter, her color, I have never seen it before, so maybe this is the right decision. Mech seems to have to believe in you, and the other three have trusted you. I cannot get a strike past you now when you have no weapons. Kaz, I Windorf offer you the Wind Force Pact as a sign of the respect that I now hold for you. Please take care of my daughter, Windorf explained to me, and I nodded firmly and then focused. I didn't need to speak, but I did roll my eyes when I felt the elemental airflow into the tramp stamp location on my back. Great, now I had the Pact of Wind Force over my ass. Maybe I could flow while meditating by using my wind. I shook my head and then looked at Heidi, who was still pink, but her eyes were now normal pupils. I reached under her and scooped Heidi up, and she giggled, then stretched up to kiss me. Is Daddy going to take me home for more fun? Heidi asked me after she stopped kissing me, but I shook my head. No, we are going to rescue another girl that needs help, I said as I released my fire pact and then activated Windorf's wind pact, but I also opened up the windows that I had pushed aside earlier. Name. Kaz, level 5, class. Shaman, strength. 6, dexterity. 3, fortitude. 8, wisdom. 6, intellect. 2, spirit. 7, energy. 127, class skills. Rank 2. Target a plant to speak to it. 60% chance of success. 9% chance of irritation. Rank 1. Summon bonded plant to fight as your ally. Rank 3. Auto, trigger, totem bond is triggered when a totem mark can be acquired. The target must express gratitude to you in some form in order to trigger totem bond. Rank 1. Activate more than one bond at a time. Only one primal bond can be active. Total bonds activatable. 2, bonds. Earth Tsunolili totem. Bond. Kali. Increase body proportions. Water Sphinx totem. Bond. Veronica. Increase reaction, awareness, and thought process. Water Undine totem. Bond. Heidi, intensify senses of you and those you are in contact with. Elemental bonds. Earth Force Pact. Bond. Grogville. Greatly increased physical resistance. Immune to fire, wind, slashing, and blunt damage. Weak to water, piercing, and vibration damage. Fire Force Pact. Bond. Fire Den. Greatly increased magical resistance and absorption. Absorb wind damage. Weak to water and earth damage. Water force pact. Bond. Wataluga. Greatly increased flexibility and body control. Combinations with wind, earth, and fire damage will create different types of damage. Weak to wind damage. Wind force pact. Bond. Windorf. Greatly increased physical speed and strength. Immune slashing and piercing damage. Weak to water, fire, earth, wind, and blunt damage. Blessings. Kez Foreman, level 6 title. Monster Caretaker rank. Condo Rancher, Monster Girls. 5 system. Ranching system abilities. Monster Girl Rancher. Gain experience from taking care of your monster girls. Monster Girl Pacification. The innate ability to calm monster girls. Monster Girl Care. All things done to care for monster girls are 100% more effective. Monster Girl Food Prep. All food you prepare for monster girls is 75% more satisfying. Chef's Hand. Physical body-to-body contact with monster girls increases how full and satisfied they are by 35%. Designate up to one person, and that person will receive the monster food prep skill. Monster Girl Essence. Gain 10% of all experience gained by monster girls in your care. Unique system abilities. Monster Dominance. You now have the ability to exert dominance over a monster if your will is more significant than its own. Gift Hunter. Gain the ability to track special items that will increase your bond with the monster girls you are looking after. These items will give a special linked skill to you and the monster girl receiving the gift. Heidi, level 1 title. Not applicable species. Undine/Wind Elemental unique ability. Barrier creation system. Designer system abilities. Pattern placement. Create patterns on anything. Designer's touch. Edit objects, but only the visual aspect. The original object will not change, just how it is perceived. To see all the new and current art and read 20+ chapters ahead, check out my pa*tr*ian.com/magic_.